All right. All right, we're up. Hello, everyone. I'm Mel Dizon. I'm the head of content at CrossFit. And I'm here with Nicole Christensen and Connor McDonald. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Doing great.
Good what? Good.
Afternoon.
Oh, good afternoon.
What time it was.
Yeah. I'm excited today. You're my coaches, you're my friends. I'm super excited to talk about this topic. So thank you guys for being here. If you're watching live, feel free to throw something in the chat. If you're not, where are you? Where the hell are you? Why aren't you here? Why aren't you watching this live? Why aren't you talking to these people live? Tell your friends if you're here, go tell them. All right. So let's dive in. But first of all, I just want to know, how did you guys meet?
It's a good question.
Wow, that is a good question. We CrossFit Roots put out a job ad for a coach. We needed another full-time coach, and Connor was one of the people that applied for the position.
Awesome. Was there did you know anybody here, Connor, before you? I mean, because you're. Hey, Meredith. Woohoo, Meredith. Love it.
Awesome.
I did have one friend that lived in Boulder, but that was the only person I knew.
Okay.
And happened to come up and visit him like a few months before you posted that ad, I think.
Yeah, it was a few months before.
I'd introduced myself, but she knew nothing about me. I was just so blown away by Roots. And then when I saw that ad come up, I was like, immediately.
Boom.
Apply.
So what were you doing before you came to Roots? Where were you? What were you doing?
I was in Beaumont, Texas, my hometown. I was coaching CrossFit full time. After I got out of the Coast Guard, I moved back home and found a gym that had surprisingly just opened when I got down there, and they needed a coach. So was coaching down there, but was ready to move on, I think. And the position came up and it worked out great.
Cool. Were you a level 1 at that point or a level 2?
I was a level 2.
Level 2. Okay, cool. So I want to talk about, we'll kind of get through it. So for people who don't know, Nicole owns CrossFit Roots in Boulder, and 16 years. Is that right?
We are in our 16th year.
In your 16th year.
Crazy.
Okay. And Connor bartend CrossFit in Georgetown, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And you, what, 2.5, 3 years? Where are you?
January 8th will be 3 years officially.
Okay. Awesome.
Almost 3 years.
And you were a coach at Roots for how long?
3 years and change, I believe. Does that sound right, Nicole?
Yeah. Was it almost? Yeah, I guess that's right. 2018.
Yeah, and then I moved.
2022. Yeah.
Thanksgiving Day of 2021 was the day I left. So it was
Okay.
3 years, give or take.
Great. So I want to talk a little bit about sort of that onboarding process for you, Connor, since you got to experience with Nicole and sort of how that builds culture. But let's just start. This is a big thing that people talk about, the culture at gyms, the culture, sort of that macro idea of the CrossFit affiliate culture. And then there's the individual gym culture. And so, Nicole, how do you define culture? And was that on your mind when you thought of starting your own affiliate? I mean, you started in your garage, but kind of how did that come into play?
Yeah. I mean, I think I define culture by the unifying ways that things are done at a gym, that whether it's defined or undefined to a person, if you ask them, what are the things that make this gym stand out? Some of the things that those are the things that people pick up on. And so a lot of that obviously starts from the way that things are done on a daily basis. And then that becomes just ingrained in how people are, how they live in the gym, how they're trained, if you will, all those different things. And then it kind of bleeds out into everybody else. And I think, I mean, I was 26 when I started Roots. I did not have we're going to have a, culture document or anything like that. And to this day, we don't at Roots, to be honest. We have things that I guess if I was going to make one, I would put into that, like our etiquette and things that we do. And we have a whole document. I think we went through this one time about
yeah, we're going to talk about it for sure.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
About things we do and don't do at Roots. But no, I definitely didn't define our culture. I think what I was trying to create was an affiliate that really did live by the methodology of CrossFit.
Mm-hmm.
That was our culture.
Yeah. Had you spent a bunch of time going to other gyms before you kind of opened the garage, or was it pretty just?
Yes and no. So I've been a member of an affiliate for 2 years and or maybe a year and a half. That was in Boulder. They're no longer open, but that affiliate was where we had started. And then I definitely, well, actually that's actually funny. I did, and while going to that gym, I also did drop into other gyms because anytime I traveled, I had to go to a CrossFit gym because I just needed to do CrossFit. Actually, a funny story about that is the first time that I did CrossFit, I did like 2 workouts in Boulder. I was instantly hooked. So I went and I had to go home to Virginia, or just happened to be in Virginia for a work project. And so I looked up a local affiliate and I ended up at Trident CrossFit, and I met Andrea and Chris like the first week I ever started doing CrossFit. And they were in a jujitsu training room. It was like a no window room with mats and stuff. And I was like, I got to do CrossFit. But anyway, so yeah, I did drop into gyms, but not completely selfishly because I wanted to work out, not because I was like really necessarily looking at other gyms.
Research or anything.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Yeah. Connor, so what was it like? What did it feel like to come to Roots? Obviously it had been, it was pretty well established by the time you got there.
Oh, yeah.
You'd already been coaching in a gym. What stood out to you when you came to Roots?
Man,
what didn't?
I know, right? I was gonna say, tough question to answer. Like I was from the facilities, like the equipment and the layout of the gym was like the most organized, like cleanest, neatest like facility I'd ever been to, which was just like the beginning. And then the quality of coaching, the quality of movement from like every athlete in every class relative to like other places I've been. Just overall, it was like on another level that I had never experienced before. And I honestly didn't know that was like existed or that there was like a capability for other gyms. So it was extremely humbling, but also extremely motivating when I got there.
So you don't get like the amazing coaches without really having a strong sense of what you want your coaches to be like. How do you want them to show up? What do you expect of them, right? And so can you talk a little bit about, let's talk a little bit about the onboarding process, Nicole, that you take your coaches through. And then we can actually talk to Connor and say what that process was like. And I would say 3.5 years, things have changed a little bit, I would imagine. But what does that hiring process and onboarding process look like for Roots?
Yeah. And I'm trying to think back. We definitely do it a little bit differently now, but like I remember with Connor, so he came, there was a whole onboarding process in the sense of like getting him set up with the systems and payroll and, all the different documents that you need to sign. Like just the first week is just so much of that. And then I know that like the first couple months he was there, he had front desk hours because just being at the front desk is such an easy way to make yourself accessible as a new coach. And since he was going to be a full-time coach, that was really important there. And then he co-coached with me, and that was only for 6 weeks. And I remember that at the time my mom had just passed away. And so I was a little bit more like less hands-on than I would. And I think I've always talked to Connor about this too. Like I was kind of, and to be fair to Connor though, like he was really good. Like he was good and he picked stuff up quickly. And so, we got to that 6-week point and I think I was like, all right, he doesn't need me here all the time. And so I passed that off sooner than maybe I would have thought I would, but definitely felt good about it. And so, yeah, there was definitely like a process there, but I think the big difference or the big other component is, and something that I do think is a culture element, is that even after 6 weeks, so, he's co-coaching with me, and during that process, he's learning how our lesson plans work. He's learning like, hey, when it says this is what that means. And this is how it needs to look. And all those different things about, there are languages that go into a gym about how workouts get set up for that gym and that space. So you're learning that, but you're also learning, that across the board, it's the same, which I think also is really helpful. But then the other part too, is that and this is a thing that I do notice at Roots, and I've noticed it at Bartend too, which is cool when I've been able to be there. You're rarely the only coach at Roots there. And so, even though Connor went and he's, coaching the 6 weeks, it's not like it was like, hey, bye. He's got other coaches in his class. He's got, 3 coaches behind the front desk. One's waiting for a foundations to start. One's finishing a foundations. One just finished work. So there is this like constant, refinement. And then he's also seeing all of that go down. And so I think a lot of that really helps onboard any new coach, that you're relying on. You're kind of relying on your culture to just overwhelm the person in a lot of ways.
Right. What was the, and I want to ask you, Connor, for sure, but what was the actual hiring process? Like, do you make your coaches like coach a sample class? Like what's
do you remember this?
I 100% remember this.
Yeah. Okay, Connor, say it. You're the one that felt it.
So there was like, I think 2, maybe 3 Zoom interviews. One was with Nicole and Allie, who was the operations manager at the time. And then one was with Nicole, Eric, and Allie, I believe. Then they flew me up there for an in-person interview, which in and of itself, I was blown away because they like covered my flight, got me a place to stay and all the things. Like, this is crazy. Like as a CrossFit coach, like that, didn't know that happened. Then I went up there, I took a class, and then I want to say I coached 2 classes the next morning. And like they took me out to dinner and all this stuff. I think it was just kind of like looking back, I think it was an airport test, we call it, or like the litmus test. Like, do we like hanging around this guy? Is he fun to talk to? Does he suck? But yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, Nicole, but that was, I took a class. Don't know if you remember this, Nicole, you probably do. At the time, I fancied myself a very good athlete. I had just competed at regionals like a few weeks prior, and I was like, whatever. I had never been scaled in a workout before in my life until that day. And the workout
because he couldn't keep his back like anywhere near respectable.
Oh, it was atrocious. It was like, I think the workout had like deadlifts, box jumps, and ring muscle ups, and the deadlift weight was like 225, which
no, it wasn't. It was heavier than that. It was like 315. We purposely made it heavy to see how he.
And it was like a weight that like at the time for me it was like not that heavy of a weight. I just moved so poorly and had never been held to like any standard whatsoever. And like Allie coached that class, and she came up like after my first warm-up set and was like, yeah, no. It's like, all right. I like was like shocked. I didn't like push back or anything.
Were you like, oh crap, I'm failing. I'm going to fail.
Not really. It was more just like, I was like, what? Like she explained it to me. She's like, hey, like your back looks like this. I need to look like that. Like, let's put on 275 and like see what it looks like. And I tried as hard as I could on that one. She was like, yeah, no. And I think she got me all the way down to like 185 or 205 or something like that. And it was the hardest I've ever worked in my, like up to that point in a workout, because I was trying so hard not to round my back. And anytime I did, Allie was right there. Sorry, I digress. I remembered that. But no, I did the 2 Zoom interviews, the in-person, took a class and did 2 classes the next morning, I believe. And then I think maybe got a job offer after that. Is that right? Okay.
I think I called you. I don't know if I gave you I don't actually remember if we offered the job on the spot. No, because I sent you a offer letter.
Yeah. It was basically like, hey, we'll get back to you. Like, thank you for coming.
Yeah. So is that, Nicole, pretty standard that you're gonna, when you hire a coach, you have them kind of meet the team and then obviously do some example coaching?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, Connor was unique for us at the time because we hadn't hired a new full-time coach in a while. Like a lot of our coaches had started off as, part-time or subs, and then their careers changed and they, came into a full-time coaching job. But if we were going to, did you guys see Meredith's comment?
No.
I also was put in deadlift jail my first week at Roots. I love deadlift jail. That's amazing. Yeah, but your deadlift's amazing. So if we were going to hire another coach, we'd do this exact same thing. We would go through that process and we would fly them out. And it is a test to see, like, do they work well with the team? Do they fit in with the team? I mean, I chuckle at the deadlift thing, but like, I knew Connor was a good athlete. I knew that he had just been to regionals and stuff, but and I also seen him move. And so wanted to see, where the bandwidth was for wanting to improve movement. And I mean, I remember being behind the front desk, and I don't remember which coaches I was standing with. And we were just watching this go down, trying to one, keep a straight face because it was just fun, it was just fun. And two, just being in that moment, just watching him work with the coach and be like, this is what I got to do. I'm like, okay, game on. We've got a high level athlete, we've got someone that can kind of drive our competitive stuff. We've got someone who coached a great class, and we've got someone who's going to take instruction. And when it comes to moving well, is going to prioritize that and let us work with them.
That's awesome. Yeah. Deadlift Jail, Amy, same thing. And hey, Katie, I know these guys. Yeah.
Katie Hayes.
Yeah. Katie Hayes.
Hey, Katie.
Hey, Jeffrey. Cool. All right. So you go through the, what was the onboarding like for you in terms of, let's kind of stick with this idea of culture. What did you learn through that onboarding process about what kind of place this is? What are the expectations of you as a coach?
What Nicole said about there constantly being multiple coaches present at the time was 100% true. And I think that was extremely helpful for me, because it kind of just showed me the expectation of from the most basic stuff of what time to show up if you're coaching that class, and what's expected of you as far as preparing for the next class or whatever, all the way up to the more fine detailed stuff of your presence and demeanor when you're on the coaching floor, and the type of athletes and the type of coaches that were there, and just the hard to put it in words I'm finding out right now, but right. Just the feel of the gym and the way that people were, it was a very contrasting difference from the gym that I come from.
Yeah.
One, because it was tremendously bigger. I mean, the gym I left had 100 members, and it was 2,500 square feet. Roots at that time was at the 9,000 square foot space, right? And I would guess 300 or so members. So just the overwhelming amount of people there was a crazy shift. But that deadlift story resonates with me more, because that's how the entire gym was approached their workouts, and that was foreign to me. I came from a place that was a little bit lean towards the competitive side for everyone. It was I can do the heavier weight and get a better score, but it looks like crap. We don't do that here. And it was very much no athletes ever had pushback, and it was it was crazy.
You've trained these people well.
Yeah.
So just anyone who goes to a CrossFit gym regularly, you kind of get the sense that each class itself sort of has a personality, right? The 5:30 a.m., 6:30 a.m. personality is wholly different than the 4 p.m. personality.
6 p.m.
Totally. So but so do affiliates, right? Affiliates have personalities. So if you had to describe your personality of your affiliate, Nicole, in a couple of words, what would you say? And Connor, you're next, so you're getting a little lucky to think about it. What would you say?
I would say dedicated, fun, and collectively dedicated, fun, and collectively motivated.
Okay. Connor?
That was really good.
Thank you. That's why I'm level 4. Just kidding.
The first term that came to mind was work hard, play hard. Very diverse. And I think that in a nutshell, work hard, play hard is kind of the MO, and then just the diversity as far as the types of athletes and backgrounds and ages and demographic, all the things.
Yeah. Chappie says, speaking of demeanor, I've always said I can teach anyone to coach, but I cannot teach you to be a good human being. Yeah.
There's some truth to that.
There's truth to that. All right. So I'll save that one for later. Is there anything that you look back on Nicole in your early days as an affiliate owner, that you're really glad that you did to kind of like set this up, or that looking back, you're like, oh, I wish I had done X, Y, Z?
Small class size.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't, so when we were in the garage, well, not the garage, when we were in our first space, which I think was like 1,200 square feet, we capped the classes at 6 people. And a lot of Greg's early writings were like about, you start with one-on-one training and then 2-on-1 and then 4-on-1. And then, you're able to do a larger group and you can grow into that. And I really took that to heart, mostly because I was just starting out and it was very overwhelming for me to try and coach 4 people and stuff. And so, I remember when we went from like 6 to 10 people at our original space out on Pearl Street. And I was like, okay, this is a big deal. We're almost doubling. And I was like freaking out. But and long story short, we ended up at 12. And I do think that has been a giant, like when Connor says, like, you walk into roots and a lot, people move well, and they do. They move well and they understand how to move. And I do. I attribute that to like our 15-year commitment to keeping the class size manageable I'm going to say manageable for the beginner coach, and something that is like that the advanced coach or the coaches that have, that have been there longer and are just like, have excelled at coaching can like just murder a class with 12 people, where they are just like, they create this incredibly cohesive, wonderful environment where everyone's coached so many different times. They can pay attention to specific needs. And I think, when you talk about like, how do you move well? I mean, I think about like, if you just think like a 20-person class versus a 12-person class, that's almost like double the touch points that a coach can give to one person versus like when it's bigger. And so, yeah, I think that really stands out to me. And I'll be honest, we do 24 people on the weekends. And that's partly because everyone's like, woo, it's weekend, let's party. And it's fun. And just to get more people through, but also that is enabled because of the 12-person classes, during the week. Like, people know the routine, they know what they're doing. We can take the blinders off a little bit, but we still get a good result there. But yeah, I think that's what just the commitment to a smaller group setting.
Oh yeah. What about you, Connor?
Remind me what the actual question was. I was just
like, as you started, is there anything that you are like, oh wow, like this, I sort of was really intentional about this piece of like how I wanted my gym to operate, and it's turned out really good for you?
Full transparency, everything I learned at Roots from Nicole, and like all the like stuff that I did it there, like I implemented it. The things that I like, which is most all of it. And so something in particular, we have stayed the course of doing GPP, one workout a day, just traditional CrossFit, and haven't fallen into the trap of like let's do a lift and a Metcon and a skill work every single day, which I think allows myself and my other coaches now the opportunity to actually coach and do what Nicole is referring to, because we don't have 15 different things we're trying to do. So I think that was it was different from other gyms in the area, because I think a lot of gyms nowadays have kind of trended towards not doing one workout in a class. So we were unique in that sense, and I had a lot of questions when members joined, but never budged on that. We still follow CrossFit.com, and we do the one workout a day, and I think it allows our coaches to excel, and then therefore provide a better experience and results for the athletes.
Yeah.
And I think that, just the times that I've been down to Connor's gym, and then just, when he took over the gym, when you talk about building culture and like staying true to like what you want to do, Connor's situation, I think, is really unique in that he was bringing in like almost every person was like coming from another gym when you first started. And so they all had done the strength and the Metcon. They all had been to big classes. They all, and if anything, I feel like you really, because I know we had some conversations where it was like, you really had to stay true to like what you wanted to do, because it was like every person you were getting like assaulted, like,
yes, same question.
why don't we do strength and Metcon? Like, am I going to get fitter and stuff? And so I thought that was a really, I mean, I was really, a big thing to take on. I think for you and you, from what I can see, like, you know, you've been able to win over that by just sticking to your guns and saying like, this is why we do what we do, and we're going to back it up.
I think backing it up is the entire, like, that's the whole thing. That first year, man, coaching every single class for the most part, besides, if I was traveling for a seminar, Shelby would hop in, and then I ended up getting some part-time coaches. But yeah, like, members were coming from other gyms, like multiple other gyms, and it was the same, like Nicole said, the same question, the same, like, why are we not doing this? Like, it's like, give me a month, and just like, we'll talk. Right. And then of course, after that month or whatever, it's like, man, I feel way better, and I'm also stronger. And I'm like, yeah, I know. Right?
Yeah.
This turns out.
Yeah. I mean, I imagine it would be really tempting as a brand new gym owner to give in because you're scared, right? Like, if I don't do what they want to do, I'm not going to get the members. They're going to tell me I'm not going to come. And like you said, that's everything, because if you're not solid on what you're doing and the reason for doing it, like, that's a cultural thing that's going to spread through the rest of the gym, right? Like, you don't want the athletes running the zoo, right? The people running the zoo. So that's very cool. And you guys, do you do, Nicole, what other classes do you offer besides workout of the day classes?
We have Olympic lifting, we have engine, we have strongman, and we have strength. And then we have like
Kids.
Program wise, we have like legends, kids, and teens.
Okay. Yeah, that's a lot. And what about you, Connor?
We have the workout of the day. We have a strength class. We have an Olympic lifting class. And then we have program wise, we just have like the regular CrossFit program, and then teens. Teens is like 9 to 14. It's more like a middle school program.
Yeah. How long, Nicole, did it take for you to add other types of classes, like when you first kind of started your gym?
That's a good question. I remember doing a kids class at the old gym. So that would have been like 2010 or 11. And it wasn't like it was like a 8-week session or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then we added Oli. And so that was that we definitely did that within the first 2 years that we opened. We tried to make and I would say that we stuck with that. Our specialty classes really focus around a specific level in the theoretical hierarchy of the development of an athlete. So they're sort of geared towards saying like, okay, we've got nutrition, and then we've got metabolic conditioning. Like, if you're weak in metabolic conditioning, like, go to engine. And we've got, gymnastics, control your body, time and space, go to gymnastics. We do have a gymnastics class. I forgot that one. Go and work on that specifically. Then strength. Okay. We've got Olympic lifting and strength and strongman. And so it's kind of tying them to being able to say, like, you can work on a weakness in a structured way to be able to do that. But yeah, we didn't add, I would say Olympic weightlifting was the only one we had. Mm-hmm. And then we actually, I don't know if you guys remember, there was the old CrossFit football. It was like these super high power output, short, intense workouts. And we did that as a class on Friday nights. And that was like super popular.
That's cool.
I remember Friday nights.
Yeah.
That's right.
So, but yeah, that was what we started with.
Cool. All right. Does your gym, I know the answer to this, does your gym have written rules for members? And what are some of the rules? What are you willing to share with us? And yeah, let's start there.
I mean, we have public written rules. So we have like our shop etiquette, which is, partly etiquette and partly like things that, that we want everybody to do. So like from a culture standpoint, one of them, I'm just bringing them up now, but like, we don't break barbells down until everybody's done with the workout. Right. And so that's just like a cultural thing that, everybody knows, and it's really easy to maintain. The first person finishes foundations and they're done with their workout and they start putting stuff away, and you just go over and you're like, oh, we wait till everybody's done, and they look around, they're like, oh, nobody's moving. They're all just sitting around. And there's multiple reasons for that one, for that rule. But yeah, so those are ones that
Okay, so what are the reasons?
So one is that if the first one is that just sort of a mutual, I don't know if you want to say like respect or understanding or training element of every day someone's going to finish first and every day someone's going to finish last.
Yep.
And giving people that space, if you will, to not be that person that's like, oh shit, I'm like the last one to finish, and like everyone's putting their stuff away, and like just having, yeah, exactly. It can be demoralizing to people. And if we're doing our job right as coaches, honestly, like an athlete should finish first one day, they should finish in the middle of the pack most of the time, and they should finish last someday, because you're pushing them, or you're, pulling it back, or, you're helping them find different places to fall within that time domain over time. So that was the first reason. The second reason is I just thought that when everyone starts picking up stuff, well, I guess there's a couple, but nobody talks to each other, right? They're just putting their stuff away.
Yeah.
But if people finish their workout and they're waiting for someone to finish, those are some of the best conversations that people have, right? They're hanging out, they're like sitting on the floor with somebody, they enjoy that time and they've earned it. And so that was the second reason. And then I guess the other one is just that, we don't leave, like I've been to a couple of gyms before where it's like, someone will finish the workout, they'll put their stuff away and they're like, I'm going to get out of here. It's like, whoa. Our classes start on the hour and we finish at 59 minutes and 38 seconds in the hour. Like, we're going to use every single minute, and we expect you to stay there. And so part of that was also just like, creating that that habit or that etiquette, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so that's why.
Okay.
I think that on that one, about we don't jet out early in class, you're going to be here for an hour at a time. That says a lot about the coaching and the quality of like time management, group management, just the ability to like, hey, no matter what the workout is, like no matter how many people, no matter what's happening, like you will be done.
Yeah.
We'll start at 6 and we will be done at 7, which is hard to do consistently, but that says a lot about the quality of coaching there.
Yeah.
And I think it's a two-way street, right? Like I expect a lot of our athletes. I know Connor expects a lot of his athletes. I expect them to come in with the mentality of wanting to train. Yes, and have fun. Everyone's always like, oh, it's just always business. I'm like, no. But like, the expectation is that like we work hard here. Is it, we're going to pay attention. And I, if you want results, you have to commit that hour. At the same time, I will commit to you that you can plan on the hour and exactly an hour of your day for me to get everything I need to you. It's not an hour and 5 minutes. It's not an hour and 10. It's not some days, oh, it's 48 minutes. And now I can get a few minutes to get out early and I can probably pick my kids up early this time. It's like, no, we will take 60 minutes of your day, but we will not, come hell or high water, we're not going over. And we're also going to use every last second in that hour.
And y'all do. Like,
yeah, totally.
100%. Like, the expectation is very clear there. And that's something that I've tried to implement at Bar 10 as well.
Yeah. I was listening. I can't remember where I heard it or who said it. I was just listening. Somebody said that I think it's one of those things as a member of the gym, I expect it always starts exactly on time. Like there's no waiting around ever. You also know like that you can't be late. And I remember just like being really scared. I really wanted to come to a workout one time and I was like, I have got to leave early. Like I have to leave 5 minutes early. And I'm going to go up and talk to this person. I got to talk to my coach. Like, please, can I do it? But that speaks to what you built at the gym. It's just like this very, very clear expectation. There's no messing with it. But somebody had said, well, I started to, create a buffer on the front and end of my classes so that if we run over or go late or start late. And I was like, oh yeah, that again, like that would be a totally different gym experience, right? Where you're like, I might go over, like maybe we'll do it and maybe we'll start on time. And so I think that's super Interesting. Any other written rules like that you would say are, real specific to you guys and that create a distinction at your gym?
I mean, I think there's a lot of stuff that's baked in that, like, it's funny you ask that, because like I think it's stuff that we've always done, and it wasn't until a couple of years ago that I actually like wrote them down, because we had a coach come, I can't remember what it was, and they were doing something, and my whole team was like, I can't believe they would do that. And I was like, huh. But it was really interesting. It was not written down anywhere. It was literally just culture that had developed at the gym. And then I realized, like, okay, we have to start saying some of those. Like, I have a couple of them. So like, athletes can't sub movements because they are hard for them. Will make them tired for their afternoon run. They'd like to work out the way they'd like to work on something else today in class. They don't like that movement, or their PT told them to do more of X. Like, like we will always scale and modify absolutely for the athlete, but like there's a workout of the day on the board and that's what we're doing. You know what I mean? Like, we don't video ourselves in working out in class. Like I've been to gyms where there's like all these like tripods and people want to like post on Instagram and stuff. I'm like, that's just not our culture. That's not what we do. When taking a class, coaches don't coach during the class.
That was a question that somebody sent in to you guys, actually.
Yeah.
It feels really weird when the coach is in coaching, taking the class that they're also coaching.
Yeah. And this is one that, like, I mean, there's so many layers of this one that I think are important, and Connor, I don't know if you've probably had this experience more recently, but it's because you've been bringing on coaches, but if Connor's in the class, taking the class, and it's a newer coach or someone that athlete hasn't been to before, and it's, they're trying to figure out scaling their muscle ups. And then, they're, rather than going to the coach of the class, they go and they're like, hey, Connor, what do you think I should do? Well, now two things happen. One, if Connor answers the question, it gives up an opportunity for Connor to give so much credibility to the person he's bringing onto his team. Right. So if he's like, hey, you know what? Like, that's a great question. Go ask Sarah, or, whoever the new coach is. The second thing it does is it takes away that newer coach having to work through scaling options and figure it out for those people. Right. If it's always like they're just going to the coach they know, it's robbing that newer coach of, yeah, they're going to mess up. It's okay. Like, that happens. That's never the issue, right? But like we rob them of that experience on that side. And there's also too, there's just that coach that is in class is taking class. And the second that they start answering questions, it just takes away from the streamlined, presentation or coaching or structure that coach is working really hard to maintain. So yeah, we have a couple of different ways that coaches can say to the athlete, like, oh, go ask Sarah, or, oh, I'm in class right now, but like, you should totally go ask Sarah, or like, just like, basic stuff. Yeah.
You said something, the one of the rules before this, you don't scale or change because you don't like this or whatever, that whole list of things that you don't do it for. And I would suspect that would be something that kind of comes up a lot, right? Because people, even if they've been coming to your gym for a long time, they still have their own ideas and they're like, oh gosh, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do this, such a thing. So as a coach, think of this now as a coach talking to other coaches who run into this. How do you handle that? How do you handle somebody that says, I'm not going to do, or I'm going to do this box jump and it's not right for them? Like, they're right. Gonna, to maintain it. How do you actually handle those conversations?
The box jumps one's a good one. Like, so I will say, like, all the ones that I read off, they've happened like one or two times. Like, we're not getting like infiltrated with it. And I think part of that is because when you have a plan and you have a why behind the plan, like, people's imagination don't run off. Like, if everybody's snatching and they're corrected and taught how to snatch, it's not like, can I do a dumbbell snatch instead? Because, whatever. But yeah, so like one of our big ones is that the box jump, like, what are we training? We're training the explosive nature of a jump, right? And so if you can't jump on a 20-inch box, we don't have you do step-ups. We have you lower the height of the box so that you can get the stimulus of jumping, right? Preserve the stimulus. And so, if someone comes and they're like, I don't know, I can't jump on the 20, so I'm going to do step ups. Well, step ups are never, I don't want to say never, like they're, but they're not something that we use to scale a box jump. Barring I have an injury. Okay. So like we'll put that in a different category. But if it's just, I can't physically jump up to the 20, we're not going to have to do step ups. So if an athlete comes up and they're like, hey, I can't jump on the 20, so I'm just going to do step ups. We'll be like, oh, well, are you able to jump? So first we'll we're going to clear out the injury side. And like, oh yeah, I can jump. And I'm like, okay, cool. Well, let's just find a box height that you can jump on. Come on over here. All right. What about this 16? What do you think that looks like? And then, initially they're a little bit like, I could probably jump on that. Or maybe they're like, no, I couldn't jump on that. All right. What about a 12? Or you can go way down to the other side of like, if you're not sure, be like, hey, what about this 8-inch box? And then you can build up. And it's almost like a better reaction, right? Like, well, of course I could jump on an 8-inch box. Like, okay, cool. Right. And you go up from there, but you're never really giving them the option. Like you're just kind of steamrolling that part. And again, it's like you're having a plan. The other big thing too, and this is where culture reinforces culture. If they look around and everybody else has scaled their box jump and they're jumping, now they don't feel out of place.
100%.
Right. So, and I think that's like such an important thing. And that's why I think it's so amazing what Connor's done, because I just deal with that with one athlete out of foundations, every, I don't know, couple weeks or month, you know what I mean? Connor had to deal with like a lot in every class, right? There was like this infiltration. And so but I do think culture reinforces culture. So if you look around and that's what all the other athletes are doing, then you don't feel embarrassed or like, oh, I'm the one that's, stepping up, right? No, everybody's jumping.
Yeah.
And I've seen this play out too, like, in other movements, obviously.
Yeah. So somebody wrote in about their relationships, like with their coaches. And so, Nicole, you've been around 16 years, and I'm on a webinar, dude. Yeah. On like 16 years. And, so you've got a lot of people in there that are your friends, but you're also their coach. And so somebody said, like, sometimes I have a really hard time balancing that thing because they're my really good friend, and then I'm coaching them and I'm telling them to, like, how do you handle that? Is that a thing?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's always a thing, right? Like it's something that, I think the nature of a CrossFit gym breeds that, right? Like I mean, I joke that, like, when I was in high school and I worked I was a lifeguard, like some of my best memories are in that lifeguard stand or in that lifeguard room. Right. And I joke that I was just trying to recreate that, so yes. So it definitely is that, you have people that work for you. You have people that become your friends. You have people that the nature of a CrossFit gym is you also do things outside the gym with them. It's just the way it is. Right. Like, but I think that over the years, and I've not done it perfectly by any means, but you have to communicate those moments so that both you and the person can sort of grow with the relationship. Right. And so, if you bring something up with one of your coaches that maybe you've become friends with, or you've gone on a hike with them before, whatever, and you've got to talk to them about something, I think it's like laying the ground rules, or like just being open about it. Like, hey, look, I want to talk about this. And, I want to be clear that, like, the goal here is to just clean this up and make it so that it's, I don't know, fixed or whatever. And then how you carry yourself and how you kind of proceed after that, I think is really when they're like, oh, okay, I didn't mess up, or, it's going to be okay. But I think that's one of the hardest things, right? There's so many levels of it. You're going to have disagreements. Things are going to not get done the way you want them to get done. Things are going to get done, and the person that did it might be like, it's always with good intent. You know what I mean? And so then it's like having to be able to just sit down and have an open conversation about it. And, and one of the things that someone wrote to me one time, like when I was getting feedback years ago, was like, you don't always have to make it okay. And I think that that's been really helpful for me over the years, is like, if I say, like, hey, this class wasn't done right, or like, I'm not saying like you're a terrible person that was the worst class ever. It's just like, hey, these things need to get cleaned up. And how that person reacts, right? They might need some time to like process it, right? But like, it's not my job to be like, but you're okay. And you're a really good coach. And I think getting to that point also is helpful because they also have to find their own time to, process things. And hopefully over time, they'll be able to like also bring things up that bother them and, not bother them, but, whatever. But no, it's not a perfect system for sure. But I guess I would qualify that like, I wouldn't want it any other way, Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Connor? Anything?
Yeah, that's honestly, that's been one of the toughest like obstacles to navigate since like opening the gym. But coming from roots and having like Nicole as my boss when I was there, like we're still great friends. But like at the time when I worked there, it was a bit like one thing that I thought was very helpful was that everything was very clear. Like clearness is kindness. So like there was never like a confusion or like a gray area of like I'm not sure what's the hierarchy relationship. It was like this is very clearly laid out, and it was that for everyone. And for personally for myself, like when I opened the gym, I was 29 at the time, and I never had like a supervisory role ever in my life. Like even in the military, I was enlisted, and I was like junior enlisted. Like I was getting told what to do all the time. So like being the person in charge at a CrossFit gym when it's like Nicole said, like inherently it's fun and like the vibes are positive and like everybody's like friendly, like trying to find that balance point of like, okay, how do I keep that, but also like not let this get out of hand and like astray from what I want it to be. And then the added challenge on top of that was like my first couple of part-time coaches were twice as old as me almost, you know what I mean? Or like 10, 20 years older. And I'm like, all right, these guys are way more established adults than I am. And I'm like telling them like this, I just felt weird. But I think conversation that I had with Nicole, like throughout that helped a lot of just like, hey, if it's clear, it's kind, like you're not going to hurt anybody's feelings. What you might hurt someone's feelings doing is not being clear. That's where things get a little murky, I think.
Yeah. And then they go on and then you got to clean up a bigger mess.
Right.
Yeah. And I think the other part too is like, I know I had a conversation one time a long time ago with a coach that we have set parameters on like how you're subbing and when you're subbing and stuff like that. And that just wasn't happening. And, that conversation was hard, but I think not having that conversation is like worse because then it festers for you. You're also like not really being it's not clear to everybody then of like, well, what's going on? And I don't know. It's never fun in the moment, but I do think that the outcome always helps keep steering things in the right direction.
Yeah.
It's part of the gig. I mean, I feel like those tough conversations with like employees and all that, it's similar to like on the coaching floor, like having the conversation with the athlete that wants to do step ups and not box jumps and like being able to express like the reason why. Or like someone that wants to go heavier than they should in the workout or whatever. Like, I think that in and of itself is a skill set, like being able to communicate those sort of things eloquently without like coming off adversarial, but also like holding your ground.
Right.
But very similar in my opinion.
Yeah. It's interesting because so both of you are seminar staff and you through seminar staff, you get really good at getting feedback and you've had feedback for a really long time, feedback that can be hard. Right. And sometimes, I mean, coaches may come to you and they've not had it. Like they've not had that relentless feedback all the time. And so it does feel like you're saying I'm bad, right? Like versus like just understanding what feedback is. So I think that's sometimes just something you teach coaches and say like, hey, every time, when we do this is just part of the gig. There's no hard feelings. There's no nothing. This is just like, get used to it. And then they're like, they grow to love it. Right. They want the feedback. And so
I think that's a good point. Cause like, I mean, and it's a personality thing too. You learn over time. Like I grew up in the old days of seminar staff where I would get like 6 pages of notes from Pat on everything I did wrong. And it didn't that I guess my personality was just like, okay, this is what I need to work on. And I wanted to do right by Pat. Like I definitely wanted to do the right thing, but I didn't take it like Pat doesn't like me, or like, I was more like, oh, I got to fix all this stuff. Right. But personalities are different. And so, you know, you can kind of go two different directions. And I definitely struggle sometimes, like where I want to be as a leader, or as a person. I'm not a big coddler, you know, like it's just not, it's not my,
Fact.
not who I am. But so I'll call that. And so I'm just more direct, I guess, in the moment, and just, but there have been times where it's like clarifying that and being like, hey, like, you know, you're going to get a lot of stuff like that radical candor of just like, this needs to change, this, fix this. It's like, life's too short to dwell on, you know, I think, coddling those things. And also too, then like, that's the culture that you build at your gym, you know, and there are going to be instances where people can't hang, and that's okay.
Yeah.
You know?
If you guys have questions for Nicole or Connor, throw them in there. Ronald says, that's the nicest way I've ever been called old. I think.
Oh, Ron's one of my coaches.
Yes.
He's
And
one
Jeff,
awesome.
There's a difference between, I forgot to like show these. There's a difference between critique and feedback. Yeah, absolutely. For sure. Okay. So this question came in, and I'm curious for both of you. Have you ever had to ask a member to leave because they were not doing what you want? Is not great, but like they were just not a fit anymore for your gym? You ever had to ask somebody to leave?
Nicole probably has more experience with it. I have not. I can think of one scenario, one individual that it was likely coming, like inevitably, but they ended up leaving on their own, thankfully.
Mm-hmm.
But no,
I would say that's more what I think of as like, you know, it gets to the point where it's not a good relationship. It's not working out. And I feel like it always goes back to like, you know, we at Roots will have something that we're just not willing to budge on. And then they're like, well, this doesn't work for me. And you're like, okay, well, that's fine. It wasn't really good. Like I do remember a situation one time, it had to do with like signing up for class and late canceling. And like someone wanted kind of special treatment because their life scenario was different. And that's just not how we operate. But it wasn't really going in a good direction to begin with. So that one kind of cleaned itself up. I have had someone leave a class. This is at the old gym. It was during the sevens. It has a 95 pounds, 135-pound thruster for men. The guy was a drop-in. He was doing in warm-up, he built up to 135 and he was doing singles. And I was like, yeah, it's not going to work. And he didn't want to scale. And I said, well, that's what we're doing. And so I said, hey, you know, you can take weight off the bar. I can give you your $25 back and you can go. You took the $25. It's great.
He took the $25. Okay.
I think that goes back to like kind of where this whole conversation started, of like having a culture and community and expectation like within the gym, and like members that are on board with it. And then the whole root of that, no pun intended, is like the person driving the ship that's like setting these expectations, not sometimes enforcing them, and not like, no, this is the way that it is. This is how we do things. Like, and that's very clear to everyone, like not in like a militaristic or like you're being a jerk way, but just like, no, like we stay till the end of class. Like, hey, we don't
show up on time.
We don't wear headphones, like little things like that. That's just like, it's consistently like at the forefront, and never is not budging on it is what allows for that.
Exactly. Yeah.
What do you love, Connor, you go first. What do you love most about being an owner and coach? And because you were just a coach for a long time, what's the difference? How is it different? I mean, aside from, females and all that kind of business.
I love coaching. I knew the moment that I took my level 1 for the first time in 2014, I was like, I'm doing that forever. This is what I want to do. So everything about coaching, I've always loved it. Coached for 7.5, 8 years before I opened the gym. So most of my experience is from just coaching and not having the like ownership role. Some of the things I love about owning the gym is the freedom to like kind of like I'm my own boss. Like that's in a nutshell, which is dangerous and like awesome at the same time. But it's definitely different for me. But just having the responsibility of like people are coming to me for questions, or like I'm setting these expectations and rules and like the culture that like we just talked about for Roots. It's been very different. I'm definitely enjoying it, but it is extremely different for sure.
Mm-hmm. Nicole, what do you love about it?
I mean, I think at the heart of it, I love being an owner because it allows me to realize coaching exactly the way that I've wanted to do it. You know, I definitely opened the gym because I loved coaching CrossFit and loved coaching as the profession. And I think the other part that maybe I didn't appreciate until I just, you know, more recently is I just love watching the team do work and like get stuff done and like watching, like walking in, like just watching all this stuff going on. It's like all these cogs are like, they're doing the things and just then being able like to take a step back and be like, okay, what's the next best thing? And I love that. I really love that process. It actually didn't like come to me until, I don't know, like maybe a couple weeks ago. I was trying to kind of think about like where we were going to go in 2025 and what I wanted to do. And I kind of, I don't know what it was, but I think I was looking through some like old notebooks and stuff of just like how I'd write these things down. And I found something that I was like, oh, I never did that. And I didn't do it because of the pandemic. And like, so I think that's the thing. I like the evolution of it and being able to put that creative thought into like, what's the next thing?
Yeah.
That's a fun outlet for me.
So when you talk about your coaches and the team and watching that, what do you do on a sort of weekly, regular basis to make sure your coaches are continuing to up level just all the time?
I mean, I don't know if it's a weekly thing. I mean, I know this sounds like psychotic, but like I watch every single minute of every single thing that's going on at the gym. Like I'm watching the foundations while I'm in class and I'm watching the coach in their interactions with like, I have like this weird, like I see the person that's standing at the desk and okay, who's the person that's going on to foundations? Who's the coach that's coming over foundations? Like all of that's like, you know, and so that's easy to kind of keep an eye on what everything's going or how everything's going. So that's definitely the first thing. And then the second thing I would say is I definitely, you know, if something needs to be tweaked or changed, like I'm not like, oh, I'll write it down and talk about it next week in a meeting as best as I can. I will say like my first sentence when I start saying stuff is probably not always my best, you know, because it's like hard to be like, you know what I mean? Like sometimes I can probably be like, you know, abrupt, I guess. It's just so much better to do it in the moment and not be like, oh, how, you know. So I would say that's one thing. Is just like there's always like little things to talk about, look at, see in a class. Even when I'm coaching the 5:30 a.m. class, I'm watching the other coach in the back of my head. Just, you know, not them specifically, but just like, how is this all working? Like, what are, you know, where are we at? Like all that. It's all just there. And then it's just, again, like, I don't know. I was thinking about this the other day, like I'm not a goal person, which, you know, pros and cons, but like, I don't set these like big goals, but I do always have an idea, like what's the next thing I see that needs to be done. And so I think that's really where the coach development ongoing, whether it's something we're going to do in class or something I'm going to talk to one coach about, you know, over the years, I definitely think like with our one-on-ones with coaches, like it's like helpful to be able to just dig in on what one coach needs rather than it always being like the staff meetings. But yeah, I can't say that I'm like sitting there every week, to be honest, and being like, this is how we're going to further this week.
Yeah.
And
it's more
when things pop up, I'm like, okay, talk to the person, handle it now. Or is this a bigger staff development concept that like I want to put in? So it's like going to one of those places.
Yeah. So for people, let's say you've got an owner who wants wants to have a really strong and great, awesome culture at their gym, that they show up every day and are super excited, but there's a feeling like things are getting a little off the rails, or I don't quite have the structure, or maybe the respect of the members, or anything that we talked about today. What is something that you can offer them to say, like, what are some ways we could right the ship?
Write it out, communicate to your gym, and then back it up.
I think staff, like getting the whole team together regularly, like goes a long way as well. Because we all know that there's like usually a coach or two that's like, well, they're only here in the evening, or like they only or they just coach 2 classes a week instead of the other ones they're doing. Like if everybody's on the same page and is backing up what you believe in, and you're backing up them as well, like it's like that much more likely to be successful.
Right. And if you have all of your coaches implementing new rules or new ways of doing things, and, members are coming to everybody and everyone has the same thing, then they're like, oh, okay. This isn't just a one coach thing. This is everyone's on board. We're making this change. I'm either in or not out. Right.
Totally.
Adam Drake says ownership and coaching differ in that we all know how to coach athletes how to move. Knowing how to coach coaches to coach is an entirely different animal. Persistence of vision is vital too. Yeah.
Totally.
All right. My last question. Both of you get to design a massive, what are they called? Billboards. And every single CrossFit gym owner is going to drive by it in the next 48 hours. And you have one thing to say. What does it say? What does your board say?
You said every single CrossFit.
Every single CrossFit gym owner in the entire world is going to drive by this thing and see it. It can say one thing. What does it say?
Man.
Mine says work harder.
I'm stealing this from you.
I thought you were going to say be better, which is very similar.
Almost exactly what I was going to say. Mine would say good enough sucks.
Where do I have it?
Yeah, yours.
Right
Oh, yeah,
I didn't realize it was literally right there. Maybe that's subconscious.
Right
subliminal, right? Like you were just seeing it.
That was written.
I love that quote.
In the coach's office at the old location of Roots, right above my desk. I don't know if that was like.
When Connor started, I just moved it and I pasted it right above his.
You can have that
desk.
spot right over there, and that spot only.
Right. Awesome. All right. Well, thanks you guys for coming on. Super
Thanks,
appreciate it. Very helpful advice. And yeah, we'll be back soon.
Connor, I need a new shirt.
Same. Let's trade. I'll send you one.
All right.
Holidays.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.